Boko Haram kills 43 in Monguno. Details of that story can be found on page 3. Next story, similar to what Claire we said earlier. Buhari appoints service chiefs and NSA. Now, your records gave you the job, the president says. That's the rider to that headline. And of course, the photographs of the new appointees are right there on the front page. Farmers fear poor harvest as rainfall remains erratic. Details of that story on page 7. Claire, recall we discussed that on Good Morning Nigeria about 2 weeks ago. Now, the editor's choice at the foot of the front page, 2 of the headlines. Court hears Lamido and Son's bail application today. Details on page 3 and details on page 10. Eid al-Fitr, new moon to be sighted Thursday. That's according to the agency. Claire.
Okay, I'll quickly take two papers simultaneously, the Nation and National Mirror. The front page reports. Now you can find the big question as Buhari site service case and NSA. That's how the Nation captures its own version, and then it goes ahead to, of course, give a picture story of the in and out of the servicemen. Big questions as Buhari site service chiefs. Now the new men, Olanishake Ibas, Butai Monguno Abubakar, and Morgan is Chief of Defense Intelligence. A couple of other stories making the rounds on the front page. Just below that, you find EFCC probes how BPE paid 1.45 billion naira to PDP's lawyer and others. Now there's a rider to that story. Anti-graft agency to accuse BPE's chief over legal consultancy fees. And this story is on page 4. Now just stopping the masthead, Okonjo-Iweala took $1 billion for Jonathan's re-election. It's on page 4. And 6, here dead, a businessman gives arms in Kaduna. Buhari approves 160 naira to $1 rate for Christian pilgrims, and court dismisses case against Benue Speaker and others. And just at the other side, Boko Haram kills 43 in Borno villages. And quickly to the National Mirror, Kingsley. Again, National Mirror has that the similar stories leading the front page. But let me quickly take you just above the masthead there. The Gara cautions president on subsidy removal. And the rider to that story, SG assures on all sector reforms. You wish to continue reading this story on page 6. And just below the picture stories, Okonjo-Iweala took 1 billion naira for Jonathan's re-election, and this is coming from Shomoli, that's the Edo State governor. Now, only forensic auditing will show how much was taken from Federation accounts. You can find that on page 2. Standing order, senators raise further split. Details on page 6. That's the National Mirror.
Alright, let's take the leadership now. Leadership has below its name flag, Dangote Foundation targets 5,000 displaced families. And Internet fraud, that's the kicker. UAE, United Arab Emirates, arrests 3 Nigerian hackers. Details of that story can be found on page 4. This story, of course, has to do with the appointment of the new service chiefs as well as the National Security Advisor. PNB, President Muhammadu Buhari replaces NSA in service chiefs. Details of the story can be found on page 5. But there are 2 riders to the headline there. I didn't know any of them. That's according to the president. And other appointments, Mohammed Sarki Abba, SSA Household Affairs, and Sabiu Tunde Yusuf, PA. Now the photographs of the new appointees as the service chiefs on the NSA are right there on the front page. Just to skip a couple of pages and go to the inside now, page 6 of leadership. ITF, that is the Industrial Training Fund, not relocating headquarters from Jos to Abuja. That's according to the Director General. ITF not relocating headquarters from Jos to Abuja. Now, bird flu, that's on page 7. FG pays 310 million naira compensation to farmers. Right.
Lastly, before we join Bayer Toyobi for the review, it's the Guardian. It has its front page with stories that we've already read, but there is another story on the front page just below the picture stories. President directs NNPC to review crude oil swap tax. President directs NNPC to review crude oil swap tax, and he has a rider says, I'm still studying subsidy issue. And the Gaya urges caution, verify others won't removal. Now, I'd like to draw the attention of Kingsley. Kingsley is a fan of Serena Williams, and Bayo, I don't know if you are also. To the inside page, it's on page 9, you may not see it, but I'm sure my colleague here, Kingsley, will take a look at it at the end. It's Serena Williams carrying a plate of course, corn, board corner, I want to presume. And you see, the caption says, what Nigerians did with Williams Trophy Hall. You want to read all about it?
Well, that's a Photoshop, actually. That's the trophy that she won. That's right there, the trophy that she won on Saturday after she beat Gabin Muguruza. 6-4, 6-4, straight sets.
All right, there's another hilarious cartoon just right on that page you want to find out.
Sorry, just before we go to Bayo, I just want to read out two headlines. So this is important. Bayo, OAU, that's Ambassador Awolowo University, shot indefinitely, page 6 of the Sun. And this is a story that's been on since the weekend. Ambassadors recalled, not sacked, says Rajesh Okmara. Ambassadors recalled, not sacked. Bayo Table.
Thank you very much. Let me quickly have on the ambassadors recall. In fact, they have been given notice about a month ago to continue winding down because the process of appointing ambassadors or winding up requires that they inform their host communities and it's a gradual process. Meanwhile, it's no longer news that the president has graciously indicated acting chief of defense staff, service chiefs, and of course the national security advisor. They are designated acting because they are supposed to be confirmed by the Senate. This followed a statement that the president has relieved the SY former service chiefs and the national security advisor of their appointment. The president challenged the new acting service chief and national security advisor as well as defense intelligence agency that you got your records gave you the job. He challenged them to show utmost commitment to their duties. He said, it is for you as service chief to build the reputation of the armed forces and the nation. Meanwhile, the special advisor to the president on media publicity, Femi Adesina, has clarified that the president did not direct the military checkpoints to be dismantled. The clarification is that what the president said was that they should remove soldiers from checkpoints that are non-essential areas. In fact, he gave an example that the president was coming from Mina, and just on approaching Abuja, he noticed that there was a long hold-up occasioned by a military checkpoint. By the time he got to the military checkpoint, he said he saw the soldier standing there just waving his hand at vehicles. And said he got down and asked the soldier, what exactly are you contributing to security by just waving your hand? And so the president says he's against soldiers being used as traffic wardens. And that is why he directed that if they are not contributing to the checkpoint at the security at the checkpoint, it's better be withdrawn so that they don't become like traffic wardens. The good news, Central Bank says that Nigeria foreign reserve has gone up to 2.88 billion naira in 1 month. There was fall in oil price and speculative foreign exchange had actually decimated our foreign reserve that was placed at 37.3 billion in June to about 29.1 by June 2014 to 29.1 in June 2015. Central Bank said they put in some proactive monetary policy and it has impacted positively. They are saying that currently the interbank rate, which was as high as 206 naira to a dollar, has now stabilized and come at 195 naira to a dollar and has stabilized for 5 months. Import price inflation is about 8.9 and domestic inflation is at 9%. Naira has further dropped to 241 at the parallel market. This is not perfect because Central Bank indicated that it will restrict foreign exchange for 41 items that it consider very unnecessary, and this is why it's come back on the parallel market. Workers in the state are expected to resume after 6 weeks of strike. This is not because they have gotten alert and they can begin to sing God willing, but because NLC TUC has signed a memorandum of understanding with the state government. Meanwhile, the government has commenced some payments. Some payments were made for January and February for state workers, March and April for local government workers. Other payments are to cover primary school teachers as well as pensioners for primary teachers and local government pensioners. The memorandum of understanding was signed between state governments, Joint National Public Service Negotiation Council, the NLC and TUC. There was a backlog of 6 months of salary. there was a pay cut by governors that the president volunteered 50% cut. But governor of Ebonyi State, David Umar, he has said that saving from the slice of salary of political office holders will not solve the problem of cash funds in the nation. He says that will account for such gesture will be too major to tackle the nation's financial problem. He says what the nation needs is a measure that political office holders should be honest to the people, deploy government God-given resources for the people's interest, and don't cheat and don't steal. The governor says, as a governor, he earns 600,000 naira a month. If he gives 50% of that, he will now contribute 300,000 a month. What will that amount to? And I just quickly do the computation. If the governor contributes 300,000 times 12 in a year, that is 3.6 million. If you multiply that by the 36 governors, you will have 129,600,000 being saved to the government coffers. You might say it's a little drop of water that may not constitute any ocean, but it will actually inundate the ground. And quickly on the gay marriage thing we have said, the Anglican Communion and Akure, the Bishop there, Simeon Borokine, has said that America that calls itself God-owned country has negated her slogan that God is with us by voting for same-sex marriage. He has therefore advocated that the Anglican Church is against that move, in spite of the fact that some American churches have supported it. In fact, somebody remarked that if that law is allowed to stand, then Sodom and Gomorrah will deserve an apology.
You know my reaction to what I always say, God is watching us.
Thank you. Just before we'll call it a day on Municipal Review segment, I'd like to just draw the attention of our viewers to this copy at page 54 of Daily Trust. Page 54, what they call it sign language. If we can see that on the screen, page 54 of Daily Trust. Now it says 3-hour backing. Can we see that on the front page, please? 3-hour backing. That's what it says there. That's the sign. Is it packing or backing? Now, how about that? The photograph is from Brisbane in Queensland, Australia, and it's called, of course, from the Telegraph of the United Kingdom, and that's the title there. 3-hour backing or 3-hour packing.
Can I draw your attention to something? There's a photograph of a man who was arrested for beheading another man, and they showed a graphic photograph of the head. It is unacceptable in journalism. Probably if they wanted to establish that, it would have been done on a long shot, so that it's not as graphic as that. Journalism certainly avoids that kind of shocking photographs.
Bayo, I want to thank you as always for doing a good job reviewing our papers. We'll see you tomorrow. Alright, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria, and it's reaching you live on the network service from right here in Abuja, Nigeria's capital city. Now we have two talking heads this morning. But let's begin with the appointment of new military service chiefs, which many people believe brings a fresh breath of hope that the security challenges facing the country will be considerably checked. Now, let's get the profiles of the new appointees from correspondent Mohammed Abdikaji.
The new National Security Advisor, Major General Babagana Muguno, was before retirement Commander, Gas Brigade and Deputy Commandant, Nigerian Defense Academy. He was once Chief of Defense Intelligence, Chief of Defense Logistics, and Commander, Training and Doctrine Command. The new Chief of Defense Staff, Major General Bayomi Gabriel Olonishakin, hails from Ekiti State, and until his appointment was Commandant, Nigerian Army Training and Doctrine Command in Minna. Also the immediate past commander of the multinational joint task force, which has its headquarters in Jamina, Major General Tuku Yusuf Buratai, steps in as the new Chief of Army Staff. It is on record that the Borno State-born two-star general held command appointments including Commander, Nigerian Army 2nd Brigade, Port Harcourt, and Commander, Nigerian Army School of Infantry, Jaji. Chief of Naval Staff, Rear Admiral Ibokete Ekwe Ibas, hails from Cross River State. His previous appointments include Flag Officer, Commanding Western Naval Command, Chief of Logistics, Naval Headquarters, and until he
his appointment, he was Chief Executive Officer, Naval Holdings. The Chief of Air Staff, Air Vice Marshal Abubakar Sadiq, who hails from Bauchi State, was Chief of Standards and Evaluation, Nigerian Air Force Headquarters. The Chief of Defense Intelligence is occupied by the former Air Officer Commanding NAF Logistics Command, Air Vice Marshal Monday Morgan, who hails from Benue State.
All right, that's defense correspondent there, Abdul Kadri Muhammad, giving us the about brief of the new service chiefs who have been appointed in acting capacity. Now, joining us on the studio to discuss the implications of the new appointments, first let me welcome Mr. Ayokunle Fagbemi to the conversation this morning. Mr. Fagbemi, welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, and also from our Lagos studio, we'd like to welcome this time the retired Colonel Ola Majoigbe, who served in the Military Intelligence Corps. Colonel Majoigbe, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
All right, and simply joining us from our Benin Network studio is Brigadier General Ikmonwe, who is a former Provost General. Brigadier General Ikmonwe, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for inviting me.
Let's begin with you. Some time ago when this issue came up for discussion here on Good Morning Nigeria, there were those who expressed their views that, look, let the service chiefs stay to, in their own words, clear the mess, the cost. But others, like you may have heard in our reports, there are those who have said, look, this new appointment is long overdue. I'm wondering which side of the divide are you?
I think it's coming at that time. There's no doubt that there has been quite a lot of anxiety among the public, and I can also say quite assuredly that even within the services, there have been anxiety over the need for change of command of the armed forces. It's normal at this kind of occasion, when there is change of government, when the commander-in-chief, when a new person assumes the position of commander-in-chief of the armed forces, to appoint new commanders for the armed forces, and all of that important security apparatus in the nation. This is happening now. I believe that looking at what has just been done, looking at the list of the officers just appointed, I think a thorough job appears to have been done in terms of experience, in terms of exposure and training, and in terms even of geopolitical spread. I believe that a thorough job has been done. The taste of the pudding lies in eating the say. I think in the days and months ahead, we'll begin to see the effect of the change.
Thank you very much there, General Idada Ikmonwe, speaking to us from our Benin Network Center. Let's go over to Lagos, where Colonel Majoigbe, we introduced him earlier. Colonel, let's see this. Some persons have reviewed that the new appointments are hardly a surprise, in the sense, as General Ikmonwe said just now. Once you have a new CEC, obviously going forward, you will also have changes. Now, we experienced this 5 years ago when former President Jonathan became acting president. You know, in the period of during the period of his appointment as president, when he then took over from the late Yaradua. Of course, he fired the service chiefs at the time. Of course, made subsequent appointments. Have these appointments, in any case, come to you as a surprise? And what do we make of the appointments in terms of having to deal with the current challenge of terrorism?
The first point I like to make is this, that I agree completely with my senior colleague, General Ikmonwe, that there is nothing strange about what has happened. If you look around the world, whether it is in the West or in Asia, in Pakistan, India, wherever, you will discover that it is normal for new commanders-in-chief to appoint their own service chief. But there is something that I like to add to what my senior colleague has already said, and that is that a lot of people seem to deliberately forget that by the time you get appointed a service chief, it is unlikely that you have a lot more time in the service. Now, what do I mean by that? Most people who get appointed as service chief would have spent about 30 years in the service. So you will find that by the time the commander-in-chief who appointed them leaves, they too would have been due for retirement anyway. And I just like to make this point quick and see this opportunity. Looking at some of the papers we reviewed, or the kind of comments we've had on radio and television, I think that the media has been unfair, in my view, to those officers who have been replaced. What do I mean by that? Some newspapers put it very well. The president has replaced the service chief, but some said they have been sacked. Well, maybe I'm overreacting to this. My position, from what I know, is that it is not right to say they have been sacked, because the truth is that they have not been sacked. It just so happens that the time allotted to them in the service, in compliance with the terms and conditions of service, has expired. That's all there is to it. So I think that it would be nice if Nigerians could choose to be a little bit more nice about those who have been in government in any capacity at all, and not try to embarrass them. Thank you.
Colonel Madrid, thank you for your opening remarks. But gentlemen, I'd like to draw your attention to an excerpt credited to the president, and this of course runs through all the newspapers. But I'm taking this excerpt from Daily Trust. Your records give you the job, the president says, and there's an excerpt there. Your records give you the job, save for the new chief of army staff, whom I briefly met at his command at the multinational joint task force in Chad. I don't know any of you. Now, this is attributed to the president. Let's quickly look at the value that some of these appointees will be bringing in, especially to the fight against insurgency. General T.Y. Butai, Chief of Army Staff, Command of the Military Joint Task Force. Mr. Fabio, let's begin with you.
I think we need to situate correctly what has happened within the legal and policy framework. The Mama Sharia for the Nigerian cities, the 1999 Constitution as amended, which gives the President Commander-in-Chief the prerogative to decide and determine how to go with the armed forces as we now have it. Sections 8 and 18 of the Armed Forces Act spells out that he requires to have to help him man the armed forces service chiefs. In section 18, we talk in terms of the conditions and terms under which he appoints them and the procedure. And this has been complied with. And that is why Colonel is right in helping us to correctly label what has transpired and has occurred. And that is why you'll discover that the last clause of section 18 says that he will only do this by the time he has done some consultations. And the consultations will not be attempted by anybody to be queried. And he does that by going through service records. And he's already presented to us that he has gone through service records. And most of these men that are outgoing were equally privileged to have come on board with records of service that were commendable as well. The challenges that we are facing are such that you need new bottles, you need new wine, and then what the current Commander-in-Chief is doing is to try to redefine and reconstitute and recompose the national security and defense management architecture.
And what does it charge to do? When you take a look at the service profile of all these service chiefs, is it from Yomi Olomishaki, who is the Chief of Defense, or the Chief of Army Staff? Most of them have either served in academic or training command and or involved in signals, doctrine issues, things that have to do with infantry. A good example, T.Y. Buratai is a good example of the kind of soldier that we need at the command of affairs now.
Coming from the infantry.
Not just coming from the infantry, there is a man that is exposed to guerrilla warfare tactics. He was commander in charge of 2 brigades before, where he had to deal with the insurgency that occurred then at the creeks, the Niger Delta area. And then this is somebody who is multilingual, is a multilinguist. And this is the kind of thing he speaks French. We need such people at the helm of affairs. When you take a look at the man that has now been appointed as a national security advisor, he holds a PhD. You need somebody who will help the National Security Advisor's Office, the ONSAC.
That's Munguno.
That's General Munguno. General Munguno retired, but before he retired, you need to understand that he was formerly in Defense Intelligence, Chief of Defense Intelligence. He was equally at the Training and Doctrinal Command. And when you take a look at such services, we need a good mix of all this. And that is what President Buhari has succeeded in bringing to the table. So in terms of serving Nigerians, I believe that all the issues that people are trying to bring up will begin to get addressed progressively.
Okay, Mr. Agoni, thank you very much for the comments that you have made. And just again to reiterate the point that retired Colonel Lamaji made from our Lagos Metro Center, it would appear that Nigerians, or some Nigerians, if not most Nigerians, tend to be uncharitable to persons who occupy political offices, or persons who are seen to be in positions of authority, which is why you've seen the kind of otherwise celebratory headlines that service chiefs have been sacked. The other time, in fact, we also talked about that in our newspaper review, that ambassadors have been sacked. You don't sack ambassadors. An ambassador is a representative of the head of state in the receiving state. And therefore, if you say you have sacked him, of course, it's not that the head of state is in fact sacking himself. But let's come back here now to one of the issues that we would like to raise on the issue on the matter of the appointment of the new service chief. And my question goes to General Aida Daikmore. General Daikmore, would say the ranks of the new appointees, they are major generals. And I think they are from regular course 21 or 23. And it's been the tradition, obviously, that those who are higher up or those who are senior to them will have to go. What is the implication of this at this time? Because if you recall, and I think Colonel Majobo should also listen to this, because it was a point that was articulated on this program last week, that as the country is at war, you need as much brain power from current and even retired officers. So both senior, junior, and contemporary ought to have their hands, as it were, on deck to ensure that we triumph over the terrorists. Now, what is the implication of appointing officers of this rank, and if you still have those who are above them, who obviously will have to exit?
Well, thank you. I would like to go straight to the point by drawing attention to the relative seniority of those who have just been recently appointed. I think really that the span from the 25th course of the Nigerian Defense Academy to about the 29th course, which is about 4 courses in between. I believe that the commander-in-chief must have given this issue very serious thought, particularly the issue of the attrition rate, which is bound to flow from appointing somebody well below in rank, which will make it necessary for all those who are senior to him to go. But I think in this case, there has been a reasonable balance. For example, the new Chief of Defense Staff here is 26 course. The Chief of Army Staff here is 29 course. Between the defense headquarters and the army, there are a lot of positions that can be occupied by those who will now be too senior to serve under the Chief of Army Staff. But I think the most important thing in this issue is the question of efficiency, the question of training, exposure, and of course we cannot rule out the issue of geographical spread, which has become a very sensitive issue in Nigeria. I left the army well over 19 years ago. I cannot claim to know all these gentlemen very, very well, but I have the advantage that in many ways I relate to the military, even now. As the chairman board of trustees of the Defense College, as a member, as the chairman of the Nigerian of the Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, and even as legal advisor to the army. I think I'm in reasonably good touch with the military, and I therefore know these officers more than most people who are retired. I think that these corps of officers are good. I think that we're well trained, and I think they represent they represent a good balance between merit, training, professionalism, and the need for political balance. I think the president has done a good job, and like I said earlier, the test of the pudding will lie in the
The general, of course, a former privileged general of the Nigerian Army. Colonel Majority, I know that no one of the services is more important than the other, but if you look at the appointees, some of the positions and the appointees, for instance, the Chief of Army Staff and the position of the National Security Advisor, both appointees are from Borno State. I'm wondering, might it be a deliberate choice by the president?
Well, quite honestly, I will be saying something that is untrue and maybe impolitic if I say that I know the process through which the president went to make this election. But I'd like to say something straight away, following from what my senior colleague has already said. But I have been out of service for 17 years now, but I also have quite a lot of interaction with the armed forces, particularly in terms of training in the area of defense intelligence. So I know one or two of these guys, and I'd just like to make one or two statements very quickly, if you permit that. 2 years ago, I had this training session, which they called something that has to do with combat support elements of the army, and I met General Olonisaki, and I just walked up to him and I said, then of course he was commander of Nigeria Army Signal, and I walked up to him, and I'm not making this up, and I said, General, how are you? He said, fine, sir. I said, good. When it comes to what we hear about you, it has always been positive. Oh, he said, thank you very much. I feel flattered and all that. From my interaction with him, I think it's an excellent choice. But I am even much more familiar with the Chief of Defense Intelligence. As a young captain in the Nigerian Defense Academy, where I was an instructor, the Chief of Defense Intelligence was a cadet. And maybe because I'm not very smart as a person, I have found myself gravitating towards people who are smart. So even as a cadet, I like him very much. And that relationship has gone on even until as I speak. It is not possible, I hope I'm not exaggerating this, in the circumstances in which we are, to appoint anybody who is better than Major General Mongolo. The general already talked about this. This guy was a defense advisor. That is after he had commanded the brigade of that. He was a defense advisor in Ghana, and during that period, he got 21 letters of commendation. Let me repeat that. During the period of service as a defense advisor in Ghana, he was commended 21 times within a space of 2 years. Do not forget also that he was the chief of defense intelligence, which meant that all the intelligence elements in the armed forces reported to him. And if you add all of this to the fact that this is a guy who is very quick on the uptake, it's not everybody who has a PhD. So we're not talking about PhD from some backyard American university. We're talking about from a top university. So I'm just very, very excited, and I'm so delighted about his choice, and I think he's going to do very well. I do not know the others as well as I do the CBI, but from what people have told me, but I'm not going to quote them, you see, because that is the hearsay. So from the things they have told me, I believe that the defense establishment and the security agency have got excellent people to guide them through this war that we are having in the North.
Thank you very much there for the treasure trove that you have opened up in terms of the details of the new appointees. Truly very informative. We would also like to thank the other guests. But let me ask Mr. Fagweme this question now. Of course, this is relating to what is easily observable. Namely, before yesterday, there seemed to have been a lull in the fight against the insurgents. We heard very little about sorties, being flown by the Air Force. We heard little about, the ground forces or the mechanized divisions moving in. They said, okay, they had strapped their positions, to dust in the past, but the terrorists were still coming out with their booby-trapped bombers, to terrorize different parts of the Northeast and out to Jos that way. What are we likely to see now? Are the new appointees likely to say, look, we're going to prove ourselves and say that this is the way to go?
I believe that the new appointees will want to prove themselves beyond reasonable doubts, and the mix of the fact that you have former chiefs of defense intelligence fully represented, at least two of them, and a man who had been in charge of signals, means that you will have a lot coming out to play, mindful that we are dealing with asymmetric warfare. In asymmetric warfare, you know that people are already dispersed and live within the communities, and they are these people that breach the security. And they do communicate, and you need a lot of intelligence, and we already have artificial intelligence equipment in place in the Nigerian state, which are under their control and command. We have the human intelligence framework also in place, which I believe they are going to truly activate. The fact that the NSA may be from the Northeast, not to diminish its records of service, may even be an added advantage for us, because when you're discussing a subject matter, you need somebody who is a subject expert, and it is not just that somebody is talking from the blues or being theoretical. This is somebody who can relate with the facts on ground, and with his 3 years record of service in the defense intelligence as a chief, means that we will bring a lot to bear. I'm convinced that we will be dealing with the national security management architecture to be implemented according to the legal and policy frameworks, because these are men who have been involved in training and doctrinal command issues, who have been involved in command and control, and they will bring all this to bear. We will see a lot of changes, we will see a lot of shaking, and I want to reiterate the fact that General was rightly addressing. Some of the men that may feel a bit threatened that by virtue of this appointment, some of them will be losing out. They may lose out at the normal service level, but they will be moved to the defense headquarters. And this will create the required stability that is required. And mind you, like General has already proved, officers constitute a pool of reserves that are usually consulted, and they do meet regularly and do interface. And what I know that the National Security and Defense Management Architecture that is to be implemented under this regime is trying to address is how to tap resources from within the service, the core service, the reserve, and the civil-military relations that we do have. Thank you.
Right, Mr. Fabini, thank you very much. Let's get back to Benin. Brigadier General retired now, I don't know, if you mingle with the public within the hours the appointment was made, you might have heard, slogans like soldier go, soldier come, used to refer to the latest appointment. Now, beyond the forces, service chiefs, are we seeing something new, something different? Should Nigerians be actually breathing a sigh of relief?
Well, thank you very much. I would like to start by saying that by and large, the country is going to get the kind of leadership that it deserves. I think a lot will depend on the leadership that will be the leadership course that will be charted by the president. And I do believe that President Buhari is out to make a mark, to make a change, and I must say that this change is highly desirable. Looking at the tactics of the insurgents, the terrorists now, it is obvious that they have changed from wanting to acquire territories, which was the hallmark some time past, and now they are more involved in asymmetric type of war. They are more involved in guerrilla type of tactics. And this is why I must say that given the profile of the new Chief of Defense Staff, the new Chief of Army Staff, the new all the other service chiefs, profile of proficiency in management of terror, like particularly the case of Burutai, profile of high proficiency in intelligence management, as one can readily ascribe to the new National Security Advisor. I believe that the new environment requires heavily intelligence-based operation. It requires a lot more synergy between the people, and the military itself. I think a lot of people have said it, and I recall very well General Gumi, who spoke some weeks ago, emphasizing the need for the Northerners and the Muslims to come out fully, to support the fight against terror. In fact, he said that without this support, the effort to defeat the insurgency will not work. I think there's everything to commend in what General Gumi said. I think it's very true that there must be a new approach to this battle, and I think that these people just appointed, these gentlemen who have just been appointed, they have the background and the training and disposition to make a mark. And I think they will make a mark. But like I said, the synergy between the people and the forces, and the need for effective management of intelligence, because intelligence has become very, very necessary in fighting this war at this stage. I think we're in the right direction, and I think I want to believe very strongly what the Commander-in-Chief said, that the appointment of these gentlemen were based on the records. And the records are there for the nation to see, especially those who have the need to know. I think a good job has been done. I believe that those who are in the helm of affairs now will definitely do very well. I don't know if I may be allowed to say a word or two about what my friend, my colleague, Colonel Major said about the idea of sacking former service chiefs, and that the way of the way the media put it was uncharitable and unpleasant. I do agree with that to a very large extent. But the truth also remains that, people are reacting according to what they're saying. And there is no saying the fact that what happened during the last administration, especially in the period preceding the election, left a lot to be desired. Such that people really wondered if we still had an army that was loyal to ideas, loyal to the constitution, loyal to our laws, rather than being loyal to the individuals.
All right, we'd like to thank retired Brigadier General Idada Ifome. At some point he retired as the Provost Marshal of the Nigerian Army. Thank you for being with us on the program this morning. Okay, let's go over now to Colonel Majorigbe at the Lagos Network Center. Colonel, let's try to situate this. Now, in the last couple of weeks, we saw a rise in the activities, if not atrocities, of Boko Haram elements. But it's also the case that during the 6-week interregnum between the postponement of the elections and the holding of the presidential election on the 28th of March, the military recorded significant gains against Boko Haram, wiping them virtually out of their positions in the northeast. In other words, the military had shown the capacity and capability of dealing with these guys, if they were to stand toe to toe. But as we have also acknowledged, now the tactics have changed, and then we have seen, of course, a deterioration in the security situation, particularly in parts of the northeast. Going forward, what do you think should be the urgent item on the desk of the new henchman?
Thank you very much, Kingsley. At the risk of appearing to patronize you, I would like to say that there is so much that you have already said in framing the question. And I'm so delighted to have this opportunity to make this point. Some time ago on this program, someone said, look, the terrorists are now having an upper hand. That is not a correct reading of the situation. Notice that you said in the period before the election, the 6 weeks, they practically wiped these guys out of every inch of land belonging to Nigeria. And I want to explain that again. That is because the terrorists decided to go conventional. That is, they took Mubi, took Ukawa, took Baga, put their flags on the ground, and were collecting taxes and preaching in mosques, trying to be in charge of this territory. Now, when the Nigerian armed forces got the equipment required, it didn't take more than 6 weeks to wipe them off the surface of the Nigerian territory, because that is the kind of fighting for which the Nigerian army is trained. So look, from point A to B is our territory. Fire at any moving object. Seize that land. Now, what now happened is this. When these terrorists discovered that they were not able to stand the Nigerian armed forces by holding the ground and seizing territory, they simply went back to what they were doing, namely asymmetric warfare. They stopped taking territory. They started going to soft targets, blow up a mosque, blow up a school, and so on and so forth. And that is extremely difficult to handle. I don't know whether these terrorists learned about the Vietnam War. When at one point, these Vietcong people were doing asymmetric fighting. Then they made a terrible mistake in what was the third offensive. They tried to fight the Americans man to man. Then were they wiped out of the place? So the terrorists are not having any advantage now. They are not doing any better. They have gone to what they know best. And that is why I am so delighted that these appointments have been made. You have experts in communication, that is the chief of defense staff. You have an old intelligence hand that is running the office of national security advisor. These guys are going to be met toe to toe But let me say something that the general said. This game is intelligence heavy. You have to know that someone is going to a mosque or to a motor park or to a church. And in this, it is human intelligence that is uppermost and most effective. How will you be able to get all of that? Again, I go back to what the general said. You have to carry the people along. The citizens must be ready to squeal on the terrorists, and they must be given every assurance that their identity will not be revealed. If they do not do that, we are in for a long haul. And I just pray that that does not happen to us. Of course, as the general said, some of us are quite willing to speak to these gentlemen, some of them that we know. Say, look, my friend, this is what you think you should do. And as I said in my earlier program, I do know from talking to some of my colleagues that there are people who are able and willing to support the president in this war.
Okay, General, sorry, that's retired Colonel Alamajobe speaking to us there from the Lagos Network Center. Thank you for your contributions this morning. As we said, we have two topics that we're discussing. Obviously, after this conversation, we're going over to the CBN measures on forex transactions, which is of course very important because we and I need to have sufficient bucks in our pocket to move on. So, Colonel Alamajobe, thank you for being with us.
You, as always, God bless you.
Thank you. And then, Mr. Fabibi, just 30 seconds. Wrap it up, and then we'll sign it off.
Okay, I want to plead with General Mangono to kindly reorganize the Office of the National Security Advisor, mindful of the fact that the Amnesty International report that we're talking about, it emphasized that there were some leakages in terms of documents and things like that. There will be need for him to do that reorganization. There will be need for us to address the issue of the sleeper cells of these insurgents that have already invaded the place, and then to build on the civil society state interface for early warning data gathering system.
All right, Mr. Kule Fabulous, thank you very much for your perspective. And gentlemen, I'd like to once again appreciate all your contributions. Indeed, they give us hope. Thank you. All right, we move on now. This is Good Morning Nigeria to our next conversation. Over the years, Nigeria has continued to pride itself as a nation with huge opportunities, dependent on oil for its revenue and foreign exchange reserves. Now, like most developing nations, Nigeria's huge revenue from oil appears not to reflect on its foreign exchange reserves balance sheet in spite of monetary policies of the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN. Now, finance correspondent Lisa Yeze gives us an insight into this background report.
Comparative reflection on the foreign exchange reserves of Nigeria and remains a story tell. Data from the International Monetary Fund indicates that China's foreign reserves as of December 2014 stands at $4 trillion, Japan at $1.25 trillion, United Kingdom at $156 billion, developing nations like Brazil stands at $366 billion as of April 2015, Algeria at $193 billion, South Africa $46.4 billion, Angola $33.5 billion, and Africa's biggest economy, Nigeria, has $29 billion, which increased June 2015 to $31.8 billion, exceeding excess to the count at $1.7 billion. Experts say Nigeria's annual budget of above 4 trillion naira and February benchmarks at the peak of crude oil sales room to boost her foreign reserves. But this was hardly the case, with the federating units sharing almost every excess revenue from oil sales and other sources. In pursuit of its mandate, the Central Bank of Nigeria has continued to evolve monetary policies to ensure that Nigeria's foreign reserves remains at its peak, one of which relates to restriction of importers of 41 goods items from accessing foreign exchange from Nigeria banks in order to encourage local production and
they want to continue bringing in these goods or services into the country, have to source their foreign exchange from their own private sources.
After few weeks, the new policy has yielded over into Nigeria's foreign exchange account.
All the items that have been banned by central bank, they are items that are locally. The number of Nigerians who migrate from Nigeria to different countries of the West and the Middle East is serious. And these are the things that are putting a stress on foreign exchange balance.
While manufacturers applaud the new policy, it remains mixed feelings for others.
Massive importation, it really affects the currency.
Everybody is looking for it. Since they can't get it in the bank, there's demand in Zone 4.
Within the 2 weeks of banning this importer, the market changed completely.
All right, thank you very much there to Cliff Ayaze, our business correspondent, for that illuminating background. We're joining us now to discuss the issue of foreign policy exchange or measures by the central bank. We have here with us is Director of Financial Markets of the Central Bank. Mr. Okejo, welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
All right, and then we also would like to welcome at this time Mr. Frank Uweke Jr. Frank Uweke Jr. Served as minister at some point and also until recently was Director General of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group. Mr. Uweke Jr., welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
From our Lagos network today is Mr. Reginald Odia, and he is chairman of the Economic Policy Committee of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, and he also has 25 years experience in the manufacturing sector. Mr. Odia, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
You must have seen the list, 41 items banned for which foreign exchange will not be issued to importers of these items. How does it affect you, positively or negatively?
Thank you very much. First, I must say positively. Positive in the sense that many of the items that were banned, the local manufacturers have capacity to produce them. So we really appreciated that, and we've actually written to the CBN to again appreciate that. But we are a bit worried that many of these decisions were taken listed, and perhaps the consultation was not completely cleared. It would have been nice if we were informed about it so that we can tidy up some small areas that actually affects our raw materials and manufacturing. So on the whole, I would say it's a right step in the right direction, but we need to do some little bit of tidying up so that we don't shoot ourselves in the foot while we are trying to do our best to develop the economy. That's what I will say for now.
Hey, Mr. Odia, thank you very much there for your comment, but of course that is in contradistinction to the position of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, which says that the policy, obviously, if fully implemented, might hobble the economy. Now my question goes to Mr. Frank Uweke Jr. What's your reaction to the raft of measures being taken by the CBN to conserve Nigeria's foreign reserves?
Well, thank you very much, Kingsley, and it's a pleasure to be here. Well, I think that I'm going to be a little cynical, right? I guess that some of these measures have been rolled out to mitigate the impact of the falling oil prices on our foreign reserves, on our earnings, and of course on the value of the naira. Now, for someone like me, I worry because this is not the first time we are confronted with this kind of situation. And so as a matter of fact, I believe that some of these measures are measures that ought to have been there from the past 10 years or even more. We've enjoyed the high oil prices and then huge reserves, which we could have managed much better. And so I want to be a little cynical in saying that perhaps the horse already left the barn before some of these things came out. But again, be a little more charitable, better late than never. I have no doubt that if these measures are sustained and then fiscal policy ultimately begins to converge to actually underpin these monetary policy interventions, I believe that perhaps we can begin to see more significant positive impact in the long run. Okay, we want people to manufacture these things here, but what use is it to me if it's going to cost me, a fortune to produce these things here when I can easily import it? Why do people want to import it? If it's possible to manufacture, of course you do it, but because of infrastructure challenges, because of issues around power, because of issues around infrastructure, it's a lot more expensive to produce these things here. And so importers or manufacturers want to quickly get it in and then, go to the market with it. But better late than never. If we start now, perhaps we can really mitigate some of this negative impact going forward in the future.
Better late than never, Mr. Frank Jr. Thank you for your reaction there. Now let's get back to the main man for today. That's the Director of Financial Markets Center by Mr. KJ. Mr. KJ, some of the reactions that we're getting from, now the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria and indeed the Lagos Chamber of Commerce is that there are items they consider as intermediates that are included on the list, and these are items that are probably raw materials to finished products for which we don't have comparative advantage here in the country. What informs the inclusion of those items?
Basically, just like, thank you very much. I want to say, just like Mr. Wike Jr. said, that if we wait until everything is okay, we may never really take off. And let me say also the fact that every item, depending on the classification, is intermediate. Somebody can tell you that egg is an intermediate product for cake making. And basically, yes, we have looked at all this, and like the representative of the Manufacturer Association said, these are products that could be produced. He referred to the issue of infrastructure. We quite realize this, but shall we continue to wait until all these are there before we start doing what we have to do? It is cheaper to produce. It is cheaper to import and sell off and make their money, but trading and all this never grows a country. And we are aware of the fact that we have lost in terms of reserve our major source of energy, which is oil, which crashed from as high as 115 to as low as $45 per barrel. And of course, we need to know that it cannot be business as usual. And for those who talk about intermediate goods, we are quite aware of it. But like I told you, they can be produced locally. And if not immediately, in the medium to long term, we have to, because we cannot continue to export our jobs overseas and then import poverty. We have to create jobs for people, and we have to make do with all those things we have around to be able to produce intermediate products will eventually be produced locally. And what we just said that this is a time for us to refocus. Mr. Wike said that the ship has left the harbor, but luckily it is never too late that we are starting now, and we are forced to do this because of the circumstances we find ourselves. So I think we take off from here, then we are likely to make progress.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Mr. Okejo. That's a question that I find interesting to ask, because I've asked it in the past and I wasn't satisfied with the response I got. We're complaining now, or we are in dire straits because of the collapse in the crude oil prices. And crude oil prices, our receipts from crude oil sales, fund our foreign reserves. Who are the other parties that ordinarily should contribute to the growth of our foreign reserves? Is it only when we sell oil that we have foreign reserves? If we had no oil, what would we do?
Yeah, basically, thank you for that question. Basically, we have other sources, non-oil sources. And we realize that the central bank has put in place a couple of measures actually compelling those who export other products that are outside oil to make sure they repatriate those foreign exchange before they utilize it. Unlike before, people could earn foreign exchange, keep them overseas and utilize them without it coming into this country. But we insisted that it just come in first, and then you can now use it for all. People export, we have people who are exporting some other commodities outside agricultural commodities, but what happened in the past was that they were not actually coming back. And now we want them And also remember that the non-oil sector actually accounts for less GDP other than the crude oil export. So there's production going on in that aspect. But the issue is to ensure that those funds come in and it can be counted and utilized.
Is there a tracking system for ensuring that?
Yes, we have that. I can tell you the central bank, there's what we call the NSP, which is a form all exporters actually open while they're exporting, and we track that to ensure that the process of those exports come back to the bank, through the bank, which they open the LC for the export of those commodities. And a lot of money has come in the last few months through that measure.
Okay, let me get even though this question I should direct it to you, but I'd like to get the response from our guest in Lagos. I don't know, there's a caveat to the new policy. The CBN says, look, we're not banning these items, we're not banning the import of these items. All we're saying is that importers wishing to do so can no longer purchase, which is needed from the financial markets, including the bureau de change operators. And look, if you do that, if any of the BDGs, goes ahead to sell, they will come under severe punishment. What does that portend for you, the manufacturers?
Thank you very much again. I will say that what the CBN has just done is a step in the right direction, but they still need to do more because importers will go for the cheapest source of import, and these days, if you look at it, it's coming from a direction. If you make comparison, and I'm happy that Frank also did mention it, that one of the major problems we have in Nigeria is the cost of production. For example, 40% of our production cost goes into procurement of power. For you to manufacture and in fact do any business in Nigeria today, you must have your own generator. And many of us have huge generators that consume as much as 3, maybe 4 million every month for basic production. So if you spend 40% of your production cost on fuel or on generation, whereas other countries in Europe and Asia and the Far East spend about 10, perhaps even 5% on the same, and then coupled with other exigencies in terms of cost of funds and so on and so forth, you find that we are just not there. But we think we're taking the right direction, and I'm also happy to know that my colleague up in Abuja also did mention that it's a little late. But it's never too late. We are starting in the right direction and moving on. The main thing is that we would want the CBN to go a little further. We are not advocates of banning, because when you ban, you create smuggling and other issues. But we are looking at a situation where we can create the right environment for manufacturing in Nigeria, in terms of power supply, in terms of funding, cost of funding, in terms of taxes, in terms of security, and in terms of procurement. For example, we have been speaking, and to some extent government tends to share that idea, that we must encourage buy made in Nigeria products. And this should start from the major consumer, which is the government. We expect the government to encourage that by example. For example, if we look at textile, for example, the requirement for the military, for the police, for some uniform people, if these things are procured from local textile manufacturers and local textile tailors and so on, you are of course bringing that job to Nigeria and encouraging them. See, the more you produce, of course, the better your cost of production, because the larger the production, the lower its basic economics. So we are looking at those areas, funding, power, and so on and so forth. And to say the fact, I think that we are taking the right steps, but we need to hasten a little. For example, in power, I think we are doing fairly well, but we should do better, because where we are now, we seem to be marking time. We should take it a step further, so that cost of power for manufacturing and the real sector should come down. In a situation where we pay so much on generation and still pay so much to the distribution, does not help us in any form. So these are some of the areas we are feeling that we should go a little further. But we are not in support of saying you totally ban, because when you ban, you don't really ban. The borders are so porous and open, and of course, corruption and all that is all embedded in this sort of thing. So that's our feeling. There is need for the CBN to continue to look at that policy, especially improving on it, because we are saying that yes, what is done in the right direction, but we think there is need for more consultation, and that's why we've written. Last month we wrote, giving a list of some basic items we feel that our major manufacturers would have invested huge sums of money, employed large number of people, need to continue production. Not that we can't eventually produce these items we are talking about, but if we want to do that, it's going to take us a step back. We will rather look at a situation, look at a backwards integration, where we say within the next 3 years, within the next 5 years, we should be able to produce this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Odia. So, Claire, I was just going to say that some of the points that Mr. Odia has addressed, those are the points that I think Mr. Frank Oweke Jr. was talking about, the intersection between the monetary policy now rolled out by the central bank and fiscal policy measures that, of course, will be coordinated by the Ministry of Finance. But I would like us, gentlemen, to return to looking at some of the short to medium-term implications of the monetary policies with regard to forex transactions by the CPI. My question goes to Mr. Frank Oweke Jr. We recall that, in the years past, when Nigeria was still, was still indebted to the Paris and London clubs, the IMF, used to come around, and the creditors as well, insisting that the disparity between the official and parallel market rates shouldn't be beyond a certain percentage. Now, what we are seeing from our reports this morning, the official exchange rate stands at 198.5 to the dollar, but parallel market rate ratcheting up to 241 to the dollar. What are the short-term implications, and how can we hedge against the consequences on production and then the cost of living?
Well, thank you again, Kingsley. Very interesting conversation. Again, for importers, people who are in business and who have to import most of their goods and most of their products from overseas, this is pure disaster. In fact, for those who already have things on order and who haven't finished paying, of course, this is complete disaster. And yet, I think that this presents great opportunity for us. But this opportunity can only be fully exploited in the event that the Ministry of Finance will come up with fiscal measures which can help us export much more than we produce, and therefore help us to earn more foreign exchange. I really think that, again, going from what Mr. Ukeja and then our colleague in Lagos said, if you say the BDCs cannot sell to anybody, the central bank cannot sell to anybody, okay, that's a very strong move to really encourage people to do whatever is necessary to look inwards. That's very good. But you know that in the short term, it's going to continue to put pressure on the naira, because those dollars will come out from somewhere. And so what you're going to find is that the central bank might not come out and say, yes, we are devaluing, again, by a certain percentage, but ultimately their actions will impact the naira in such a way that it continues to be, devalued. And so, again, we imagine that it might also come with some inflationary impact or pressure. It's going to come. And so ultimately, I don't know. It just depends on which side of the divide you are. But I think it's a strong policy. It's something we should encourage.
But Mr. Frank, I would like you to also take this along. And it's an important point. The Nigerian elite class is often reluctant to take or to be the receiver of harsh measures. There are observers who believe that some of the requests for official forex allocation basically amount to convenient capital flight. How can we deal with this? It's just that is the Nigerian elite or those who apply for this are faithless in the Nigerian project. How can we tame this?
For me, it's a combination of two things. If you look, the central bank is both a highly technical, as well as a political institution, right? And so from a technical perspective, we must have people who are competent to do their work, okay? On macroeconomics, microeconomics, but on the other hand, a lot of those actions actions will be underpinned by the character of the political leader. Right? And so if the economic priorities are clearly defined by a political leader, who is very keen to diversify this economy, who is very keen to really manage this economy in a very disciplined way, my expectation will be that the Central Bank of Nigeria or the Central Bank anywhere in the world will take a lead from such a political leader. Okay? And I mean, in the past, there's been a lot of profligacy. There's been a lot of, that's what I meant by my initial statement that, the horse appear to have left the band a long time ago. But again, like I said, better late than never. And so we hope that in the coming days and the coming months and years, with the price of oil remaining where it is, and therefore, really closing up a very important source of foreign earnings for Nigeria, that we will make conscious effort to really diversify our economy, and then have the discipline and the commitment to hold people accountable to, and then sanction bad behavior when it does occur.
Okay, Julia, thank you. Claire, I was just going to ask, you had a question for OKJ, yes.
You want to raise it? Please quickly do so.
Yes, thank you very much. Let me just say that currently we don't have what we can call official exchange. Because we close that window where we match the market, the retail Dutch auction system with the interbank. So what we have is the interbank market rate and then the BBC rate. What the central bank does is to intervene in the interbank market, unlike before when every order comes straight to the CBN. What happens is the banks trade, and this that they could not meet in terms of demand, at the end of the day, would decide how much do we have to intervene in this market today. And that is what we do. And what closes the rate at that market becomes the ruling rate which is used. It's not really official rate. That is the market rate for that market.
What is the band?
The band we used to have is 168 plus or minus 5%. So what we do now, but that is outside the band. So currently it is outside the band, but we still intervene. And you notice that what we do at the beginning of the day is announce our buying and selling rate. So the banks go do their trading. At the end of the day, if we want to intervene, we intervene based on what we have initially, and the market closes at that point.
I'm sorry, Mr. Okej, let's clarify this for purposes of analysis.
Yeah.
At the parallel market rate, that's what Nigerians are more familiar with. Those who are not dealing with interbank, the rate is about 240, 241 to the dollar. And again, if you say interbank rate, what is the highest band for the interbank rate? Because the figures we see or hear are around something 198.5. So what is the figure? That's in terms of, that's why I'm asking of a band, because it fluctuates, as you say, market forces.
Yes, we are currently, our buying rate is, our selling rate is 197.95, and then the buying is 196.95, which is to say, if we want to sell to the bank, that is what we sell, and if we want to buy, that is what we buy from the bank, and that is, at the end of the day, if we are going to intervene, that is where we intervene in. And also, let me talk about the BDC, which Frank referred to. You see, BDC basically are supposed to operate at the retail end of the market. Because when we talk about importers going to the BDCs sell cash, and they are not actually supposed to sell to individuals more than $5,000 cash. And I wonder how we are going to buy a shipload worth of rice and sell that fund from the BDC. And BDCs are not even allowed to wire money. So except you are going to carry a huge volume of cash to travel overseas to buy those commodities. And that is why you see currently there is an effort to ensure that those who are traveling out with huge cash are actually reprimanded and caught at the station, at the airport.
Is it a question of reprimand? Let me frame my question, please. Yes. The rule we hear is that if you are traveling out of the country and you have more than $10,000 on you, you have to declare it, including, of course, the source. Is that the case?
That is what it used to be. But we have gone a step further. That if it is more than that at the port, you have to declare that, and then you will be informed. You need to tell us the source of that fund and what you intend to do with it, because that is the last we find out in the foreign exchange manual we have act. We just say you declare. It never happens anywhere. That you just, people can carry, you can just go to the airport and say I'm going out with $1 million just because you have declared it, and you just move on. Nobody bothers where that money is coming up. Nobody bothers how much tax you have paid. Nobody bothers about your source of income. So that is part of the thing. Working with the National Assembly will tend to change that. But for now, we are going to be informed about that, and you need to tell us how you go, what you are doing with that money, your source, and eventually how much tax you have paid.
Okay, before I think this will be my last question to you. And it states, I know that the quarrel with this, with reservations about this policy, is that the infrastructures are still not in good shape, road, power, and all that. But I agree with you that there should be a starting point, a takeoff point. And like Mr. Frank Wake Jr. said, the ship had long taken off from the harbor. No, but actually you've given them the option choice. It's no choice at all. Now, the question is that you expect them to source the foreign exchange from elsewhere other than your approved financial markets. Now, if that is done, the implication is that they will bring in these goods, and these goods will come at a higher price. And the expectation is that it will further drive probably more demand for local products and force producers to source their materials inwards. What if that doesn't happen?
Basically, you see, there's a limit to which consumers can take in increased rates in terms of prices. And so basically we expect that in the long run, when it becomes so expensive, your salary is not going to be increasing for you to be consuming those things endlessly. And when the demand for those things begin to fall, we expect that the local manufacturers should be able to come in, fill those gaps because the market is there. So typical case is you have somebody in Zambia.
So take iron sheet,
yes.
For instance. Do we have comparative advantage in iron sheet? Yes.
Yeah, I think you see, you may not have full comparative advantage, but it stays, like I said, in the short to medium term, they can be produced because we have looked at this. They are there, and given the incentives, a lot of investment will go into this area that will not see people doing it. But if you continue to import it, they are there. We have iron mills that are not being patronized because, like what you said, it's cheaper. And why do I want to go for more expensive item locally? But the more volume you produce in this item, then the lower the cost, and people will invest more. But if you produce and nobody comes for it, then it is there. A typical case is what currently have even rice production. These are the rice beds. Paddy rice are lying there, and nobody is processing it because it's cheaper to import rice.
I do the two. Let them retain rice on the restricted list. It's not banned. Banned is a fiscal measure. We are discussing monetary measure. Okay. But let's return to Lagos, Mr. Reginald Odia. Mr. Reginald Odia, the view has also been expressed that some persons who source forex from the official market or interbank market, including your members, let's say manufacturers, have been engaged in speculation. And in some cases, the forex demand usually will be for imports 2 years in advance. Why this speculative behavior?
Thank you very much. We as an association have actually got worried about this. We talked with our members about it, and we are sure that many of our members don't really get involved with it. What we are doing, and we keep talking to government, especially Ministry of Finance and the CBN, is that it is easier for us to relate with our foreign partners who will give us facilities in terms of credit. And at the end of the day, we want to be able to meet up those obligations. And when we don't meet them, especially when the closure was made for manufacturers on some items, it became difficult for us to meet up some of these obligations. So these are the major things. Most of our members do not speculate, but I'm not going to rule out that we don't have. But I must tell you that the way we work and the way we go through our members' performances and association, we don't encourage it, and we are in no way encouraging anyone to do it. But what we have said, and we have also appealed to CBN to do, at the time they closed the special window for manufacturers, was that many of our manufacturers have brought in products, raw materials, that spanned about a couple of months and perhaps a year. And they need to pay back this money. It's when you produce, you sell, and then you remit money. And then we are caught in between. And along that line, many of our members are almost going to close shop, because when we brought in items at the cost of about 150, 156 naira per dollar, and we are now emitting at 190, 196 to 200 and so on and so forth.
All right, I'd like to thank you, Mr. Reginald Odia, Chairman of the Economic Policy Committee of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, and let's hope that CBN listens to your request and, of course, considers all the all the issues that we are raising on this program. Thank you very much for coming to our program this morning.
Thank you very much indeed.
All right, and Mr. Frank Oweke Jr., former Minister of Information and Chairman Nigeria Economic Group, a last-minute word from you, sir.
Intervention, and that is to say that I'm very surprised that Mr. Odia was being apologetic. The truth of the matter is there's a significant trust deficit between the private sector and government, between the Nigerian public and government. There has to be some element of predictability. I don't trust you. I don't understand. I'm not sure that I'm not going to wake up tomorrow morning and then the policy change. Wouldn't have changed. And so unless there's that trust is restored, unless there's that predictability, you're going to find the kind of speculative behavior behavior that we were talking about earlier. It's not. It's common. It's normal human instinct of self-preservation. That's what it is. And so I'm not so sure that I would support the.
All right, Mr. Frank, thank you very much, and we do appreciate your rising up very early to join us on the program. Thank you very much. And for CBN, I hope you will consider all the requests and all the issues that have been raised. Mr. Manuel Ikeji, Director of Financial Markets, Central Bank of Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on the program.
All right, it's been a double-barrel edition of Good Morning Nigeria this Tuesday. We'll take a short break and we'll come back and we're going to the phone soon.
No, I'm Divine. Never the box. Not in those days. I'm Vanessa. You like to move it. But not in those days. Today, no more issues because we choose. Always up to the split inside, up to 8 hours. No sing, no chat. I'm in a no chat mode. I'm over it all. Always I'm unstoppable. Stay happy, always.
A hectic lifestyle or overeating can cause a burning pain in your chest. That's not. Take Gaviscon. One dose released in 3 minutes to soothe the pain of heartburn. It goes straight to the source to work for hours, providing long-lasting relief.
That's why I recommend Gaviscon.
I recommend Gaviscon. Gaviscon, fast relief you can actually feel. If symptoms persist after 3 days, consult your doctor. The Dettol and Ministry of Health team is visiting schools to teach children how to protect themselves from diseases. Do you know what germs are? They are tiny, harmful, living things that you pick up from dirty surfaces. These germs can make you ill and prevent you from doing all the things you like to do with friends. That's why you need to fight them by washing your hands regularly with Dettol soap.
Mom, today we learned how to fight germs with Dettol soap.
All right, Romanian Prime Minister Victor Ponta charged with several counts of corruption, including receiving allegedly the equivalent of 55,000 British pounds from an ally. Now, in Russia, 23 soldiers died in a 4-story building collapse in Siberia. Oyemi Ajayi is our guide on the foreign scene.
Welcome. We take up from Romania, where the Prime Minister Victor Ponta has been charged with several counts of corruption in a long-running investigation. The country's anti-corruption agency said it faces charges of fraud, tax evasion and money laundering dating back to when he was a lawyer before he became the Prime Minister in 2012. The agency added that some of his property has been seized pending the outcome of the case, but Ponta has denied any wrongdoing. Ponta resigned as leader of the governing Social Democratic Party, saying he needed time to prepare his defense. but will continue to fulfill his duties as Prime Minister. He is accused of receiving the equivalent of around £55,000 from a political ally and MP. Still in Europe and in faraway France, French police are hunting for 3 armed men who stormed a Primark store in a suspected robbery attempt in north of Paris. The gunmen fled